Hi there! How are we all doing today? Just kidding, I don't care and this is a recording. Anyways, as some of you are aware, I'm a big proponent of self-harm. Specifically, the mental and emotional kind. This is something I regularly partake in with most of my videos, as I go to great lengths to make my life significantly more tedious and hard for absolutely no reason. And this video is going to be no different. As in this video, I've decided to steal yet another idea from my comments, like the uninspired hack that I am. And this said idea is to beat hardcore Minecraft with no textures, essentially turning me blind, as there's apparently no better leisurely pastime than simulating a physical disability. It really goes to show that people in my comments are just as adamant of seeing my mental decline as I am, so a huge thank you to Line Spaghetti for turning this dream into a reality. But with that said, I started off by looking up a way to make all of this happen, and it turns out that there's a mod that does exactly this, as it turns certain blocks invisible and replaces all other textures with just white. With that arousing find, I made my way into the game and got right to work, and when they said no textures, they were serious, as the entire menu screen had turned almost as dark as my future employment prospects. Nonetheless, I created a world and found myself in the most bare and monotone world I have ever seen. But luckily, not all blocks were invisible, as I could still see trees, which was a discovery that gave me more relief than an average American at a Mexican fast food restaurant. So I actually went on to having a reasonably normal start, which was rather surprising. And in that said start, I also noticed that it only seemed to be grass blocks that were invisible, which was incredibly welcome news, as it would be pretty much impossible to complete the challenge otherwise. But there was a major issue, that being that they had completely removed the inventory window along with the sprites for the items, meaning that I had to hover over my entire inventory and read the names of the items to have a slight idea of what I was doing. And after getting my genitalia inverted by that fact, I started exploring a bit. Just like in all of our other challenges, I was intending to rely on violent home invasions coupled with theft to get my hands on food and our initial iron. As I was looking for a village to do just that, I also noticed that ice and water were invisible, which was less than ideal. This made me believe that there was a chance that lava was invisible as well, meaning that making a portal using a lava pool was pretty much out of the question, as I have a habit of clapping my own cheeks at most opportunities presented. However, we were actually lucky in terms of the biome we spawned in. Normally, I absolutely despise snowy biomes, but in this case it was actually really helpful, seeing as snow wasn't invisible, meaning that we could see the ground clearly, which was very epic. But just like with everything else in life, there was something that would come to ruin that little light we had going on in our lives. That being that the mod seemed to completely screw up how light works, as everything further than 20 blocks away was blacker than an average victim of arson. And since we were in a snowy biome, we also didn't have any animals to kill, so I had to break a bunch of ice to grab salmon like some mentally disabled grizzly bear that has somehow ended up in Antarctica. Once I had done just that, I managed to spot a village, which was very epic. However, snowy villages are arguably the worst kind of villages, as they barely have anything we can steal, which was less than ideal. But we did manage to get a couple criminal activities done by stealing a bed and vandalizing their only source of food. As I mentioned earlier, I figured that trying to use a lava pool to make a portal was a rather suboptimal decision, as I thought that lava was most likely invisible like water. So my next plan was to get myself a diamond pickaxe so that I could mine some obsidian off of a ruined portal to get to the nether. But since all blocks are completely white, we couldn't go mining for our diamonds. Mining also happens to be lame, so I wasn't too upset at this fact. This left us with one viable option, which was to subject our newfound host to some good old fraudulent activities, by trading a bunch of sticks to level up a toolsmith to buy a diamond pickaxe. So off I went to grab a bunch of wood. This process was just as exciting, thrilling and arousing as you may imagine. Once I made my way back, I proceeded with the next step of our master plan by selling a bunch of sticks to some gullible loser, to then level up our toolsmith. But the game made sure to swiftly make me aware of a certain skill and knowledge related issue, as I went on to spend all of my hard-earned scam proceeds only to get the toolsmith to apprentice. For context, in order to actually buy our pickaxe, we needed to get him to master. So I responded in the only reasonable and sound way in this situation. That, of course, being to rage quit, delete the world, and cry in a dark corner of my room. The crying part was unrelated to the challenge, but still an important step nonetheless. And once those highly productive tasks had been tended to, I came back refreshed and ready for another session of mental and emotional self-abuse. So I immediately went on to die 3 times in the exact same way, as I'm a very slow learner and lack basic knowledge, such as to not stand in lava. But on my next attempt, I got a fairly nice spawn, as I managed to find a plains village before it turned to night, where I found a decent amount of hay bales. It did take a lot of struggling to actually find the damn things, as my eyesight had become comparable to that of Stevie Wonder. One thing that was pretty nice about having no textures was that finding shipwrecks was really easy, as water was completely invisible. So I took full advantage of this small light in the tunnel and collected a bunch of iron. Something I had learned during my previous runs was that lava isn't actually invisible, diminishing its spanking potential rather significantly. Not enough for me to not die over and over to it, but still a lot safer. And since grass is invisible, it's actually really easy to find pockets of lava. So I went on ahead and mined my way down to a lava pool, assembled a portal, and made my way to France. Safe to say, being able to see the ground was an absolutely orgasmic sensation, even though it most definitely looked like someone else had already experienced that exact sensation all over the place. It also didn't help that lava, a rather viscous liquid, had turned white, and that it was literally gushing out of the ceiling above me along with a bunch of random crevasses. I could most definitely go for the incredibly low-hanging fruit and keep pointing out the similarity between the aesthetics of the nether and cum, but I'm a distinguished and cultured young man. So that is exactly what I'm intending to do. But anyways, I started traversing this promotion season CEO office-like dimension and ran into a properly disgusting issue. Since all of the mobs are invisible, I only have hitboxes to go off of to see what's going on. And it just so happens that zombified piglins and regular piglins have the exact same hitbox, meaning that I had no idea whether I was about to get jumped or not. And as per usual, this whole process was almost as miserable as an average Japanese office job, as I had to traverse through an abundance of hostile terrain. But after having spent 30 minutes and 51 seconds in this spunk-themed hellhole, I finally managed to find a fortress. At this point, it appeared as if the game had let go of its fierce hatred towards me, as it didn't send any tall and spooky men in black to violently molest me like it usually does when I'm exploring a fortress. I did get somewhat penetrated with a few airborne phallic objects, but I did actually have a pretty decent overall experience. And on top of that, one of the spawners was caged, putting me in a state of whatever it's called when you're not depressed. From here, it was pretty straightforward, apart from the fact that since the blazes were invisible, I couldn't see when they were about to attack, meaning that I had to do the most dangerous thing of all. I had to trust my instincts and competence, both of which have track records of completely screwing me over the vast majority of the time. But against all odds, I somehow survived and managed to collect all of the rods we needed from the spunk dimension. So I made the soul-crushing journey back to the portal and initiated the next step of our devilishly genius master plan. That being to do the exact same thing we always do, which is to trade with villagers for ender pearls and a bow and arrows. But instead of grabbing clay, I went for the stick route, as it's literally impossible to tell clay apart from any other block. This was just as exciting and action-packed as you may imagine. I did, however, level up a cleric that refused to offer an ender pearl trade, so I drowned him and made a new one. It's truly amazing what this game teaches us to do. But once that was done, and we had scammed our hosts out of everything we needed, I made my way to the stronghold, where I proceeded to spend roughly 6 minutes and 22 seconds looking for the portal. I made my way through, and we were on the final stretch of our Mia Khalifa-inspired adventure. But as what I hoped was the final kick in my nuts of this adventure, we were once again faced with a wall of endstone we had to dig our way through. After having dug more intensely than an average 20-year-old dating a man in their 70s, we were rewarded with the pleasure of shooting at a bunch of crystals. This was when I realized that the crosshair is invisible as well, which was something I hadn't noticed earlier. But it was actually surprisingly easy to aim without it, which was very epic. What was less epic, however, was that the healing beam from the crystals to the dragon were invisible as well. Because of this, I had no idea if I had missed any of the higher crystals. And in combination with the fact that the dragon's health bar was invisible as well, I had absolutely no idea if I was making any progress, or if it got healed by some crystal. However, I'm a very lazy man. I therefore decided to just keep punching the invisible lizard and hope that it would die. And quite luckily, it did. So there we have it. I successfully navigated my way through Harvey Weinstein's hotel room. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like and subscribe if you did, and I'll see you in the next one. And as always, if you have any challenges or ideas you'd like to see me take on in a future video, feel free to drop them in the comments down below.